Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. जब उसके बाद परमहंस परिवार आचार्य डिवाइन ग्रेस की भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। जब उसके बाद परमहंस परिवार आचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर प्रभुपाद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदी। Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Canto 3, Chapter number 7, text number 20. Durapayalpa tapasa Seva Vaikuntha Vartamasu Seva Vaikuntha Vartmasu Yatrupagiyate Nityam Deva Devo Janardana Durapayalpa tapasa Seva Vaikuntha Vartmasu Yatra Pagiyate Nityam Deva Devo Janardana.
Seva Vaikunta Varmasu Yatropajiyate Nitya Deva Devo Janardana
Durapayalpa Tapasa.
Seva Vaikunta Varmasu Yatropajiyate Nitya Deva Devo Janardana.
Please repeat word for word. Durapa, rarely obtainable. He, certainly. Alpatapasaha, of one whose austerity is meager. Seva, service. Vaikunta, the transcendental kingdom of God. Vartmasu, on the path of. Yatra, wherein. Upajyate, is glorified. Nityam, always. Deva, of the demigods. Devaha, the Lord. Janardana, the controller of the living entities. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki translation. Persons whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees who are progressing on the path back to the kingdom of Godhead, the Vaikunthas. Pure devotees engage 100% in glorifying the Supreme Lord, who is the Lord of the demigods, and the controller of all living entities. Purport. The path of liberation, as recommended by all authorities, is to serve the Mahatma transcendentalists. As far as Bhagavad Gita is concerned, the Mahatmas are the pure devotees who are on the path of Vaikuntha, the kingdom of God, and who always chant and hear the glories of the Lord rather than talk of dry, profitless philosophy. This system of association has been recommended since time immemorial, but in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, it is especially recommended by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Even if one has no assets of favorable austerity, if he nevertheless takes shelter of the Mahatmas who are engaged in chanting and hearing of the glories of the Lord, he is sure to make progress on the path back home, back to Godhead. Om Ajnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurvai Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming for Saturday morning Bhagavatam class. So we are continuing our discussions on the chapter Further Inquiries by Vidura. So we just read yesterday and day before yesterday. I'll read out the translation that we read, 18 and 19. But my dear sir, I am obliged to you because now I can understand that this material manifestation is without substance, although it appears real. I am confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up the false idea. By serving the feet of the spiritual master, one is enabled to develop transcendental ecstasy in the service of the personality of Godhead, who is the unchangeable enemy of the Madhu demon, and whose service vanquishes one's material distresses. Now we read today, persons whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees who are progressing on the path back to the kingdom of Godhead, the Vaikunthas. Pure devotees engage 100% in glorifying the Supreme Lord, who is the Lord of the demigods and the controller of all living entities. So we've been reading, as we can hear, that serving the lotus feet is very important, especially in our tradition of Gaudiya Sampradaya or Vaishnavism. We focus and center our life around serving the Vaishnavas and serving the lotus feet of the spiritual master. So people can, in the path of liberation, as recommended by all authorities, is to serve the Mahatma Transcendentalists. That's what Prabhupada is saying. The path of liberation, as recommended by all austerities, is to serve the Mahatma Transcendentalists. So when we hear Mahatma Transcendentalists, what does that mean? What does Mahatma mean? One may wonder, Mahatma Gandhi, we hear a very famous name. Everyone knows the name of Mahatma Gandhi. What does Mahatma mean? Mahatma means a great soul. Mahatma, this just doesn't mean a great soul actually. Prabhupada says Mahatma means open-minded. Duratma means cripple-minded, broad-minded. That's what Mahatma means. A person who can give Krishna to others. Mahatma doesn't only mean a great person. It means a great soul who has the knowledge of the transcendental knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I can give you some material guidance, but that doesn't make me a Mahatma, because that is not going to solve the greatest problems in life that you will face. I remember I was speaking to one of my family cousins, and we were discussing. He was telling me that, giving someone a piece of bread, or giving someone a little food to eat, or giving someone little money. He said he saw a homeless guy and he gave him $100. I'm like, well, that's a waste of money, because we don't know how he's going to spend that $100. He can go and buy drugs or alcohol. He said, well, that's up to him. I've given him an opportunity, to make his life better. I'm like, he can't make his life better with $100. I'll tell you that. But what he can do, that's what I was discussing. The point I was trying to make with him is that even if you get someone food, that's a good deed, that's a good activity, good karma. But again, this is not going to solve the problem of repeated births and deaths for that person. The highest thing you can give a person is transcendental spiritual knowledge, the highest knowledge about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So they can create an understanding of how to escape this birth and death, old age and disease, these main sufferings of life. Prabhupada very famously mentions that so many people have engaged themselves in developing these big hospitals, these great hospitals, that are delaying a person's death. People think they're curing death, but they're not curing death, they're delaying death. That's all they've been doing, If you go look at the lifespan, it's not just lifespan of an average human being in Kali Yuga is supposed to be 100 years, So, but we still don't live until 100 years, because we still degraded. When coronavirus comes, how many people live through 100 years? No. So it's not like we've created hospitals and there's been no problems since these hospitals have been created. The problems are still there. There's so much COVID, the hospitals are full of patients. But Prabhupada is trying to make the point that this is not solving a problem. This is just delaying a problem. So we should focus ourselves on solving the problem. So we can perform many austerities, like many yogis perform great austerities, so to speak of Hiranyakashipu, who performed great austerities, who was a transcendental yogi, performed great austerities to get the benedictions of Lord Brahma. But what happened? Austerities doesn't make you a devotee. You can perform as many austerities as you like, but unless your heart is melted and understands and takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, those austerities have got no use. The only good thing will happen with those austerities. You'll gain a higher material position in life. But that's it. There's no spiritual. There's nothing spiritual in it. It's only material. So, by taking the shelter of the lotus feet of the spiritual master, we get the understanding of how to take shelter or how to perform service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? That's our parampara. That's how we work. Evam parampara praptam. Imam Rajarshaya. With this great science is received through the chain of disciplic succession, and great saintly kings have understood that way. So, if great saintly kings have understood the science of performing devotional service to the spiritual master, then why shouldn't we understand? Even though we're not great saintly kings, but we can still understand this simple philosophy of surrendering and dedicating a life to the spiritual master. Because just by engaging to the spiritual master, there's another verse in Bhagavad Gita that says, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprasnena sevaya upadeshanti te jnanam jnaninam tattvadarshina. Jnaninam tattvadarshina. What does that mean? It means those who have seen the truth can enlighten you. And what's the process? You're not just going to go to a random person and they'll start giving you full knowledge. No, you have to prove yourself. You have to perform devotional service. In the same verse it says, Pariprasnena sevaya, inquire confidentially and render service unto that person. And then because if that person is pleased, he will impart the knowledge unto you. So this is the process of movement. So when Prabhupada went to the West, when he started his preaching mission, people were inquisitive. People came up to Prabhupada and started asking these spiritual questions. And then Prabhupada was able to seeing this great inquisitiveness inside that person and performing devotional service. All these people did perform devotional service, and then Prabhupada became very pleased, was able to impart knowledge. When Shukadev Goswami appeared in the residence, in the appearance of all the great sages and Mahatmas, what happened? It's not like Maharaj Parikshit just, when Shukadev Goswami appeared, he just said, take a seat and please tell me the spiritual knowledge. He performed all the proper rituals, all the proper Vaishnava etiquette to take care or to greet a pure devotee when he enters. He washed his feet, he offered obeisances, he gave him respects. All the assembly gave him respects when such a great soul appears. There's a chapter number 84 in Krishna book I was reading yesterday. It was a very beautiful chapter. The chapter is when Krishna performs the ceremonies, right? So when Krishna is performing the ceremonies, he's Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And there's great sages and sadhus appearing, coming to that assembly. And when they enter, it's not like they were not treated with disrespect. Krishna treated everyone with respect. Krishna did all the proper etiquette that needs to be done when there's a great sage, or when great sages appear in front of us. One should lie, one should bow down, one should offer their obeisances, one should offer kind words to the sages, one should glorify the sages, one should do all these transcendental activities, perform devotional service. This is also performing devotional service. When you glorify a pure devotee, you are performing devotional service. That's also part of devotional service. Most of the time we think that devotional service means only doing activities that are centered around Krishna, which is true. It's not wrong. But devotional service also means that serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead through serving the spiritual master. Because when one is serving great sages or great Vaishnavas or pure devotees, that's the mercy. That's where the mercy is. Oftentimes we question, what is the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? I'm performing all these I've been engaging 10 hours a day in devotional service. Where is the mercy? I cannot see that mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So great acharyas have explained the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the devotee association, or association with the pure devotees of the Lord. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Koy, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Lava Matra, what does Lava Matra means? 1/11th of a second. Even if you get to associate with the Supreme Personality, with the pure devotee of the Lord, then you automatically achieve the highest result, or you're capable to achieve the highest result. So we should try to take time in our daily activities and daily life to center our life so we are taking association with the pure devotees of the Lord. Now, what makes a devotee a pure devotee? If you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, you will see almost everyone is a pure devotee of Lord Chaitanya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Ramananda Roy was great exalted. He's even above pure devotion platform, because the way I was reading the pastime of Ramananda Roy when he was who was it who went to his house? I can't remember the name. Pradyumna Mishra. So he goes to the house of Ramananda Roy after being instructed by Lord Chaitanya to go here, because Pradyumna Mishra wanted to hear Krishna Katha. He wanted to hear the great pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So he asked Lord Chaitanya to please kindly tell me these beautiful pastimes of Krishna. And what did Lord Chaitanya did? He didn't go on commenting. What did he say? He said, you should go speak to Ramananda Roy. He's the best at it. Krishna himself is saying to speak to my devotee, my pure devotee, because he knows the supreme science properly. So it's a very beautiful, interesting point, right? Krishna, Lord Chaitanya is acting as a pure devotee. He's come in the form of a pure devotee, in the mood of a pure devotee of the Lord. But he's still asking to speak to the person who's more qualified to speak. It's amazing, isn't it? So this is what we should learn, that we should not be eager to impart knowledge unless we have qualified ourselves. Lord Chaitanya is fully qualified, but he is promoting Ramananda Roy. That's what Krishna does. He empowers devotees in such a way that the devotees get all the credit. We see in Arjuna, even though Krishna was there instructing him properly, but at the end he let Arjuna take all the credit for destroying so many people, even though Krishna himself told Arjuna, it's me only who is destroying. So this is the glories. This is how merciful the Supreme Personality of Godhead is. He doesn't want anything because he's fully satisfied. He's Atmaram. So he wants to see his devotees succeed. He wants to see his devotees empower, in spreading this transcendental message, this transcendental science of Krishna. So when Pradyumna Mishra goes to Ramananda Roy, very eagerly, patiently waiting, his servant greeted Pradyumna Mishra's, Ramananda Roy's servant greeted Pradyumna Mishra and told him to wait because Ramananda Roy is just a little busy. And when he's watching, Pradyumna Mishra is watching what Ramananda Roy is doing, he is just bewildered and amazed because he has never come across a person so pure and so undisturbed in mind by that activity. What was he doing? What was Ramananda Roy doing? So because of Jagannath temple, there is this festivals that happen. There are these plays and dramas that happen. So Ramananda Roy is training some ladies, He's washing them, he's fully decorating them and, performing this activity which may disturb a man, but he's not undisturbed, he's totally undisturbed. There's no, in the translation it is said that there's no bodily or mental disturbance that one can see in that person. So Pradyumna Mishra is very amazed and shocked by watching this. He's just thinking how pure Ramananda Roy is, Imagine that purity. And Prabhupada clearly mentions in the purports that one should not imitate this, because this is something nobody can imitate. Even Pradyumna Mishra himself, who's a pure devotee, cannot imitate. Forget to speak of us, who may think, I am a pure devotee now, so I can do these activities. We should not engage in that. Even Lord Chaitanya declined. He said, I cannot do that because I'm a sannyasi. For a sannyasi, even in the association of being a woman can cause disturbance. Even just hearing the voice of a woman can cause the disturbance of the mind. Lord Chaitanya is saying that. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. So he's saying that I'm in the sannyas order. Only Ramananda Roy in the whole universe can do that. Because he's the only person who is qualified enough, who has controlled the senses enough, that he's totally undisturbed. And Lord Chaitanya says, why is he so undisturbed? Because he has taken the shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because when a person takes the shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's not disturbed by any material influences, because he's completely spiritual. His body is also spiritual. Same point we hear when Lord Chaitanya embraced Sanatana Goswami after he came from Jharkhand forest, he had pores on his body, which he had like some sort of infection on his body that was bringing like these bad substances, so it was very, very, sometimes we get pimples or something and there's this white things that pop up and there's fluid inside. It's very, very moochy, very dirty thing, so, and when a person looks at it, it's not very pleasing sight. So, but when Lord Chaitanya saw Sanatana Goswami, he embraced him And what is Sanatana Goswami? He's running behind. He's backing off. He's like, no, please don't come close to me. I've got infection. I've got this terrible disease, this terrible infection. And this will be such a great offense if I come closer to Lord Chaitanya, who's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This will be such a great offense from me. And I should not do that. So he's just moving back and back, and he's telling Lord Chaitanya to please, don't come close to me, just stay away from me, But Lord Chaitanya is like, no, come here. He just goes up to him and grabs him by force and embraced him. Grabs him by force and embraced him. So this is the pastime of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One cannot conceive. So, and what's his name? Sanatana Goswami is feeling embarrassed and guilty because Lord Chaitanya constantly keeps doing it. So he's revealing his mind to another confidential devotee. Who did he speak to? Does anyone remember? Who did he speak to about telling that Lord Chaitanya, I keep making offenses towards Lord Chaitanya, and I can't remember the name. And who told Sanatana Goswami that you should go back to Vrindavan? So Jagadananda. Yeah, so he was the devotee. So who's Sanatana Goswami speaking to? Thank you for reminding me. So he revealed his mind to Jagadananda, and he said that you should go to Vrindavan, because Lord Chaitanya has already sorted out for you. He wants all your family, your whole family to be in Vrindavan, because that's where you guys belong. And then Sanatana Goswami meets Lord Chaitanya and said that I'm going to leave, and then Lord Chaitanya just smashes Jaga. He says, this Jaga, what does he know? He's trying to guide you, who is a pure devotee, And then he's just like totally smashing Jaga like this. He's just a new boy, and you are like a pure, great soul who has all the knowledge. You are a Mahatma. You have all the pure transcendental knowledge of Krishna. You have understood the science of Krishna. What right does he have to tell you what to do? So Lord Chaitanya is showing us the etiquette, the Vaishnava etiquette. Even though these are all, and then Sanatana Goswami, he's not getting angry. Or sometimes when we see another person get chastised from a senior devotee, sometimes we like, oh yeah, he's getting all the nectar, he's getting all the mercy. Has anyone ever thought like that, or is it just me? Sometimes we often think like that when we see other people suffering. Sometimes, or not suffering, it's just transcendental. When getting transcendentally chastised, sometimes we feel, oh, it's very excited. It's a very, very unique situation to be in. Oh, I'm not receiving the mercy today, but sometimes we feel bad as well. I wish I was receiving that mercy. Sometimes we feel like that, or maybe not. But we should feel like that. Oh, I should receive that little mercy. There was a beautiful pastime I was hearing from Gurudev that he was saying. He was in India, he went to Mayapur, or Vrindavan, I think it's Mayapur, can't remember. So he was in Mayapur, and some devotee was getting totally smashed from Prabhupada for some sort of, I think it was discussion with some Back to Godhead magazine or something was going on. And then this devotee came to greet Gurudev and told him the whole story, and how excited he was. So sometimes we get that excitement, and what is Sanatana Goswami thinking? He's saying, now I know the truth. I know your personal pastime with Jaga. He's got the more mercy than me, because he's receiving the real nectar. Your personal, behavior with him. For me, you're just glorifying. I don't want to be glorified. I just want to be chastised by Lord Chaitanya. That's how he's singing, because that's the mercy. Even Advaita Acharya, at instances we hear, because Lord Chaitanya would always give respect, full respect to Advaita Acharya, because he's very senior. He's one of the great devotees of Lord Chaitanya, and he's so senior. So Lord Chaitanya, whenever he would speak to Advaita Acharya, he would speak with so much respect, treat him with so much respect. And Advaita Acharya doesn't want that. He doesn't want the respect of Lord Chaitanya, because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Instead, Advaita Acharya is thinking, I should respect him. I should do something to respect him. I should be more respectful towards him, because he's so senior than me spiritually. He's Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am his devotee. I should be getting chastised rather than getting respected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So, and what does he do? So he comes up with this beautiful plan. What is the plan? He goes up to one of the great places where there was katha being spoken, and then he started to preach Mayavad philosophy, impersonalism. And when Lord Chaitanya found out, he just couldn't control, because that's why Lord Chaitanya has appeared, to destroy the impersonalism, that we humans have created, So Lord Chaitanya came, and he heard Advaita Acharya speaking impersonal philosophy. What did he do? He ran behind him with a stick, And Advaita Acharya is like, yes, I've finally done it. I've finally received all the mercy, all the nectar that I wanted. And then Lord Chaitanya said, Advaita has tricked me. So this is the pastime. These are the beautiful pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami says that these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya are so beautiful, so beautiful, that when we read them, when we hear about them, we automatically become devotees of Krishna. Just by reading them, we become devotees, because our heart should melt when we read these beautiful pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and his association with his devotees. What should have our hearts? They're made of stone in Kali Yuga, with so much material contamination. But when we read these beautiful pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, they should just melt like butter. Butter melts very fast, very beautifully. When you see a butter melt, if anyone seen a butter melt, it's very nice. So our hearts should be like butter, should melt very easily when we read Chaitanya Charitamrita. And how can that happen? People can read Bhagavatam. There are many Bhagavatam reciters, scholars in the whole world. But they still do not have the understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why is that? They miss out. They read what? It takes about at least 1 year for an average person to probably read Bhagavatam, get through Bhagavatam. It took me about 2 when I started reading to get through Bhagavatam. And you spend so much time and energy in reading something, and you still miss out the essence of that book. It's like when you're in school, you read mathematics or something, you study mathematics. You spend so much money on tuition fee, so much money on getting extra coaching, so much money, because I was very bad at mathematics growing up, so I had to spend a lot of time, energy, and money to get that education, because my parents wanted me to, get good and get compulsory education. So I was pretty bad at it, so I just spent so much time and energy. But still I had no interest, I had no knowledge what goes inside, because I didn't have a good teacher to explain that to me the way I should be explained. So that's why I missed out the whole essence of studying. What's the point of studying mathematics, So similarly, one can easily get confused and lost if they try to study by themselves. If you don't have a good teacher to explain you can always be misguided. And that's what we see in the current society. Most of the people are misguided. They don't have the understanding, or they don't have the difference. They think Lord Shiva, Lord Krishna, everyone's same, everyone's equal. It's just like very, very, very horrible way to look at things. This is not what the Vedic philosophy is preaching to us. So we should understand, we should try to understand that what is the real essence of the Vedic philosophy. So even there's another beautiful pastime in the same chapter, that when Swarup Damodar, who is such a learned poet, he's very learned poet, he's very learned scholar, he knows he understands everything very clearly, the whole philosophy of Krishna consciousness. He's the master of it. So there's a tradition in the culture at that time that nobody addresses or nobody speaks to Lord Chaitanya directly. Or if someone has written a poetry, or someone has written some new verse or something, you can't just automatically go in front of Lord Chaitanya and recite it. First you have to run it by Swarup Damodar, to see if you are qualified. If you have understood the transcendental philosophy of Krishna, then only you're qualified to speak in front of Lord Chaitanya. Otherwise no one's qualified, unless they run it by Swarup Damodar. So there was this Brahmana who has written a great poem, great poetry about the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Right? So he's very excited, and everyone was very excited when they heard that this Brahmana wanted to recite in front of Lord Chaitanya. And Brahmana spoke to a devotee of Lord Chaitanya and told him, I would like to, recite this poem that I have written, this whole drama that I've written about Lord Chaitanya's pastimes in front of Lord Chaitanya. And he said, okay, well, the tradition is that we have to go to to Swarup Damodar. If he allows, that only when we can move forward. So what does Swarup Damodar, when he hears it, when he hears that there's a Brahmana who needs to recite, and he tells that, well, I don't think so, because that Brahmana is not a devotee, he is not a pure devotee of the Lord. So we should not, we should not hear. I don't know why you are hearing, but I don't think we should hear about this. Who was he speaking to? Bhagwan Das, yes. Bhagwan Acharya? Bhagwan Das. Bhagwan Acharya. Bhagwan Acharya he was speaking to, and tells Bhagwan Acharya that, I don't know, I think something's wrong. What has happened to you? Because this is not very bona fide to hear. So we shouldn't hear. Sometimes we hear when we hear the glories of Krishna by like people who are just doing it for money or some other material gain. They're not just doing it to spread the message. They're not like devotees of Krishna. Like for example, sometimes we hear the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra from these outsiders of ISKCON, who may or may not be devotees who may not understand the philosophy of Krishna. They may think, yeah, I worship Krishna, I'm chanting the holy names of Krishna, so it's okay. But it's not okay. Unless one goes through the chain of disciplic succession and understands the science of Krishna, that whole chanting can be very harmful for us. Like Prabhupada gives example that when the milk is very pure, but when touched by a snake, the potency of the milk is destroyed. Now it's very equally poisonous now, as poisonous as the snake. So we should be very careful where we take our material and spiritual information from. Because if you take your spiritual guidance from an outsider who doesn't understand the science of Krishna from the chain of disciplic succession, you'll easily be misguided. This happened, I've heard stories that has happened many times. People, when they take shelter of non-devotees, they just automatically crash in their spiritual life. So we should not do that. That's why Prabhupada is very clearly mentioning that we should take shelter of the pure devotees, the Mahatmas, the real Mahatmas of the Supreme, the real Mahatmas. So who are not cripple-minded, who are broad-minded, who knows how to guide you, who knows how to guide person. Lord Chaitanya says, whoever knows the science of Krishna, he is qualified to become a spiritual master. Whoever is qualified. Now, this is the interesting point. A lot of people think I am qualified to become a spiritual master, even though they may or may not be qualified. What is the qualification to be a spiritual master? One of our spiritual masters, one of our acharyas in a chain of disciplic succession has very clearly mentioned in this very beautiful, powerful book called Upadeshamrita, Nectar of Instruction. The first verse says, Vacho vegam manasa krodha vegam, jiva vegam udara prastha vegam, etan vegan yo visahita dira, sarvam apimam prithvim sashishat. Only that person who has controlled the urges of tongue, mind, body, belly, and genitals, who has fully controlled his mind and senses, is able to make disciples all over the world. Otherwise, you're not qualified. So, this is the prerequisite of becoming a spiritual master. And after that you can become a pure devotee. Because you have already been in this business of controlling mind and senses for a very long time. Because it takes purification. Controlling mind and senses is not very easy. It's very difficult. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that my living entities, they're struggling with the six senses, including the mind, which is the hardest to control. We're very hard to control the mind because it's so disturbed, always disturbed. That's almost like the nature of mind to be disturbed. So the only way out from this disturbance is to do service at the lotus feet of pure devotees. And that's what we read from Chaitanya Charitamrita. How devotees performing great devotional service, leaving everything aside just to serve the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya and his associates, have reached prema bhakti, or have received the great love of Godhead. So that's what we should try to focus on, is to take shelter of the association of pure devotees of Krishna. A pure devotee is hard to find. Krishna says only one in many people take up this whole bhakti process. And out of those, only few are able to succeed, get pure love of God. So it's not a cheap thing. We don't think everyone we see as a pure devotee. Pure devotee, sometimes we say, oh Prabhu, you are a pure devotee, I am not a pure devotee, I am so fallen. We just say it for the sake of saying it. We actually don't mean it. When the associates of Lord Chaitanya are saying that, they are actually feeling it. They're actually saying it with full, heartfelt, that when Sanatana Goswami or Haridas Thakur or Rupa Goswami are saying, I am the most fallen, I have taken birth in, such a low family, I've taken a low birth and I'm very fallen, and I can't even go closer to Jagannath temple, even though they are pure devotees who are, Lord Chaitanya have said that these guys, they are full pure devotees, they understand the science fully, but they still very humble, because they're very humble, because they're chanting, the name of Lord Chaitanya or Lord Krishna, so they become very humble. This is the process, We say one cannot chant the holy name of the Lord unless he's in the humble state of mind. And how can one get in the humble state of mind? Is when he's chanting the holy names. That's only when a person can achieve that state of humbleness. So it's like a circle. One cannot chant the holy name of the Lord unless he's in the humble state of mind. Unless he's in the humble state of mind, he cannot chant the holy name. So it's like a whole circle. So we should try to be humble towards other devotees and take shelter of the pure devotees of the Lord. So it's almost time. We'll stop here. If there's any questions, comments, corrections. Right. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi.